Hello, you are listening to Just Films and That. This is the podcast where we celebrate films we think deserve a little bit more love. Whether they're underrated or underseen, we're going to tackle them one film at a time. It's me again this week. It's me on my own. It's Josh. I'm tackling another listener's suggestion. Whilst I've got your attention before we get stuck in, if you could head on over to whatever app you're listening to this on, give us a 5-star rating and review. It will be massively appreciated as it helps other people find the podcast and spread the word. And who knows, might lead to some interesting film choices along the way. If you do want to suggest a film like we've done this week, then drop us an email at filmsandthatpod@gmail.com. Tell us a little suggestion of film, tell us a film that you want to choose, a little bit about yourself, think game show intro, and you can even do it with a voice note or an email, depending on what you prefer. Bit of a weird one this week because we're doing Dark City from 1998. So A, spoiler warnings. B, it's strange in that the film itself is strange. But C, this didn't come from one particular listener. So over the life of this podcast, it's been suggested many, many times by listeners. And I thought it was about time we covered it. I did reach out to a couple of other people who suggested it over the years, but no one seemed to get back in touch with me. So as ever, when someone suggests a film and then I can't get in touch with them, I'm going to look at whether this is underrated, underseen, or both, just in a general sense. But if you haven't seen it, again, spoilers. There are big, big spoilers for this. But essentially, what's it about? So a man named John Murdoch, who's played by Rufus Sewell, lives in a city engulfed in perpetual night. He wakes up in a hotel bath with no memory of but finding himself pursued for murders he may or may not have committed. As his life unravels, it becomes clear that all is not as it seems, and it transpires that he's living in a sort of a snow globe type world controlled by a group of superpowered extraterrestrials called the Strangers. They're studying and experimenting on a group of humans, including playing with their memories, which has unexpected consequences for John because he finds himself imbued with their gift and leads to him to sort of take them on, and there's lots of stuff in there about, what it is to be human and things like that. But we'll get to that. Reminded you of the structure then, if you've not listened before, we always talk about what we liked about the film, move on to anything that was negative that we didn't like. Then we look at the box office and the critical reception and assess whether it is or isn't underrated, or even both. I hadn't seen this one before. It had been on my list to watch for ages, namely because it's been suggested a few times. And boy, was I glad I finally watched this. There's so much to like in there. I mean, it is... The thought I came away from watching this was it's ultimate sci-fi. More importantly than anything, it's original. I had a look around and I think it took from a lot of things, but it's not based on any pre-existing ideas. So it's like something like, I guess, like Fifth Element, which I think is similar. It's unapologetically weird, unapologetically strange, but also really thematically strong and vague enough to generate discussion, which it then backs up with really good, visuals and otherwise amazing execution, which I think is, like, for me, if I could summarize what a great sci-fi is, that's it. Visually strong, thematically strong, generates discussion. What's it about? Is it philosophy or is it just about aliens? That sort of thing. It's almost like modern mythology in that sense. That's how I see a good sci-fi. I mean, I wish I'd seen this in the cinema. I think if it had come out 2 years later, it might have even been a bigger hit because of The Matrix, perhaps. But as it stands, it is a bit of a, it has a great place in there as a cult classic, and a lot of that is carried off by the way it looks. I mean, I could talk about the visuals from this film forever, but let's just say it's really incredibly visually striking. Like, it looks almost unique. It's all the best mixtures of a graphic novel, Art Deco, steampunk, neo-noir, because of the plot, because of the fact that these aliens are experimenting with this city. It is ever changing, so it's so rich in its visual depth. You have loads of different visual styles in there, from different cars, costumes, the buildings. It's almost limitless in its potential for how it could look, and what that does is it gives it a really, really timeless feel. On top of that, it's really, it's specifically lit because it's Dark City. The effects work really well. There's some really interesting stuff in there with the camera and things like that. The acting's great in there. You have a real good mix of acting styles. So, for example, Kiefer Sutherland and Richard O'Brien are both in this. They're really, really good and menacing and weird, quite stylized in the way they're doing things. Then, on the other hand, you've got Jennifer Connelly and William Hurt, who are sort of more naturalistic, and they bring a nice heart to the film, a nice depth to the film. Then Rufus Sewell, who carries the whole film because he's the main character. I mean, he's just tremendous in this. He is brilliant in everything I've seen him do, whether it's this or The Crown or, Legend of Zorro. Like, he's great. And he always gives everything. He's always so magnetic. He's always so watchable. He's really, really good in this. Give that man more leading roles. Some really interesting ideas in here as well around things like memory, reality, morality, a real melding of the genres. Like, it is sci-fi, but there's noir in there, there's horror in there, there's loads of stuff. As I say, it's got almost limitless possibilities, and that's just giving it a really nice rewatchability, a really nice timeless feel. There's loads of stuff in there. I think you could have a conversation with 10 different people who've watched this film, and they'd all get different things out of it. And I think that's probably where the film is really, really succeeding. In terms of the dislikes, I was really scratching my head over this one. I mean, it was really hard. We always try and be balanced. We always try and come up with stuff. I suppose it might be a little bit silly to say, but it was literally a little bit too dark at points, which I know that's sort of the point, but it's maybe some of the visuals were a little bit lost in places. Other than that, I mean, there's one or two contrivances in there around how the antagonists are, what their power set actually is, the limit of what they can do. I mean, there's this whole idea of if they created the city, why do they need to act in the way that they do in the film? But then on the other hand, I get that would essentially make them all powerful, which would render the plot pointless. So maybe that would ruin it. I was just trying to be balanced in what I was saying. Overall, I really, really enjoyed this. Critical reception then. So just to remind you, we talk about, we do the IMDb, we do the Rotten Tomatoes audience, we do the Rotten Tomatoes critics, and then we average that out, and then we have a look at the box office as well. So at the time of recording, it gets 7.5 out of 10 on IMDb. The critics give it 78%, and the audience give it 85%. So I'd say that's probably appropriately rated. It averages out at just under 8 out of 10. I mean, I might rate it slightly higher, maybe like an 8.5 out of 10, but let's say it's more or less appropriately rated. But it's definitely underseen because the box office wise, according to what I could find, it earned 27.2 million quid at the box office. And I know since it came out, it's found its way into the category of cult classic. But I think if you're a fan of good sci-fi, then get out there and give this a watch. Because as I say, it's everything that's good about sci-fi. It's unapologetically sci-fi. It's there to generate conversations whilst being really visually strong and thematically strong as well. If you do go and watch it, try and watch it on the biggest screen you can because it's great. Really, really enjoyed this one. So thank you to everyone who suggested it. And that's it. So we're going to say it is underseen. It's appropriately rated, but that is reflective of the fact that it's rated highly. So underseen, get out there and turn this from being underseen into appropriately seen because it's well worth your watch. I'll be back next week with another episode. In the meantime, as I said, if you want to get in touch with us, it's filmsandthatpod@gmail.com. On all the social medias, if you search for just Films and That on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube, we're always putting stuff out there. So do give us a follow, drop us a DM. And if we see it, we will add a film that you suggest to our list and cover it at a later date. Everything you need, links to that, links to the social media, to the Letterboxd as well, is in the show notes. Click the link tree. That'll take you to wherever you need to go. And yeah, thank you very much for listening. It's goodbye from me. I'll see you next week. Cheerio.